friends, and welcome to the School Librarian Learning Network podcast. I'm Steve Tatro, and I love talking about all things related to school libraries. I may be an old dog, but I'm always trying to learn new tricks. In each episode of the SLLN podcast, I'll chat with a school librarian about a lesson they love. Hopefully, this can be a place for school librarians to get ideas and find new ways to engage with their students and staff. As a good friend likes to say, we're better together. So I hope this podcast will help school librarians connect with and learn from each other. The opinions and ideas shared in this podcast by myself and my guests are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. And because school librarians always strive to be good digital citizens, I cite sources when using material that is not my own. Hey everybody, we're back. I am so excited. I get to talk to my friend Amanda Jones. Amanda, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing this lesson. Before we get going, I need to let you take a second to just kind of introduce yourself. Who are you? What should people know about you?
Well, Steve, I am so glad to be talking to you this morning. You're one of my favorite people.
Oh.
So my name is Amanda Jones. I am a school librarian in Louisiana, and I have been an educator for 23 years, a school librarian for 9. I was a former English language arts teacher. English language arts. And I'm a certified reading specialist, but now I'm a librarian, a school librarian, the best job in the world. I was the 2020 Louisiana School Librarian of the Year and the 2021 SLJ School Librarian of the Year. So,
absolutely amazing. So amazing. Love you. So how did you end up going from the classroom to school librarianship? Was there was that a conscious path? Was that sort of a stumbled into it thing?
It was a conscious path.
Okay.
So I've worked for 23 years at the same school that I attended as a middle schooler.
I love that.
Yeah, it's 1 mile from my home. And I knew in college that I wanted to be a school librarian. So actually, my very first year at my school, I was the school librarian because our former librarian was on sabbatical.
Huh.
Yeah. And so then she came back, as one does from sabbatical. And I went into the classroom to teach English language arts and just kind of bided my time until she retired.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I knew that I was going to apply for a job when she retired, and I really wanted to get that experience in the classroom first.
Oh
because
yeah.
I needed to learn a lot about classroom management, and I wanted to know the ins and outs of the classroom because it really helps you as a school librarian to have that background knowledge as an educator.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny. I think you're one of the few people I've talked to that knew they wanted to be a school librarian right out of the gate, which is awesome. But I agree with you that having that teaching experience, like that classroom management sort of just dealing with large groups, getting that under your belt, I feel like is such a valuable tool that I think sometimes we forget is a part of our tool set.
Yeah, I found it to be extremely valuable. And, would I have loved to have been a school librarian this whole time? Yeah, but I'm grateful for the experience in the classroom. And there's aspects of it that I miss, Yeah. They're both great jobs.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. But you get to work with the kids in such different ways in both of those positions that it's apples and oranges sometimes.
Yes.
So you're here to share with us a lesson that I'm very excited to learn about. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, first of all, what's the name of the lesson so we kind of have an idea of what we're going to call this?
Okay, so I personally called the lesson Nerdy Birdie Tweets after the book.
I love that.
But I did write an article for SLJ about it called The Dangers in Their Hands. And so, whichever, you can put Nerdy Birdie Tweets, The Dangers in Their Hands.
I love it. So it sounds to me like this is something that we really could use with our students on a lot of different levels, on a lot of different grades, and for a lot of different reasons. But particularly, I believe we're going into some social media consideration here.
Yeah. So the past year and a half, I've been targeted online by extremists. And the sheer amount of online bullying I've had to face has been just life-altering for me personally. And it really got me to thinking about how if I, as a 45-year-old adult, had to take a leave of absence from work, had to have therapy from online bullying, and I'm a really strong person.
Yes, you are.
I just am stubborn and I was raised to be strong, independent. And so it got me to thinking that if I'm having such troubles and to online bullying, what are these kids facing?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of talk about, books and libraries, but every child, even the 10 and 11-year-olds that I teach, have phones. So they have dangers in the palms of their hands. And it's something I had thought about for quite some time. And then one day in the school library, a student came up to me and told me that someone online had told them to kill themselves the night before.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and it just broke my heart because the child was 10. And I
Oh,
thought, we need to discuss this at
yeah.
the school. So I started looking into this lesson and it kind of just shaped up. And I thought it was going to be just like a really quick lesson. It evolved into a really frank discussion, and the kids were very engaged and they were very honest with me.
I feel like that happens a lot when we give them the space to feel safe, to feel comfortable, and to share their voices. We can often be very surprised by what we get out of them. Sometimes positive, but sometimes not as. So I think that's amazing that you gave them that space.
Yeah, and it was almost as if like they were just waiting for someone to ask them.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like. Like they wanted to share. Like we had to end the discussion because class was over, and I have them for an hour. So,
Jeez.
yeah, and that was every class. That was 28 classes I conducted this lesson with.
Wow.
And every one of them was exactly the same. Engaged discussion. The kids were sharing. And it's like they were just waiting for someone to ask them.
Well, so often I think it's easy to forget that students are also people and that kids are people and that they're not just little machines that we're programming to send around. Like they have their own internal lives that sometimes we forget exist, which is really to their detriment and our detriment too. So I think it's so awesome that you're recognizing that with the kids.
Yeah, middle schoolers have a lot to say.
Oh, yes. Yes, they do. Very rarely are they short on things to talk about.
Exactly.
So, how does this unfold? Like we've got a class, it's in the library. What happens? What are we going to see?
So they came through their English language arts class in the library for their dedicated library time. And the lesson started out with 2 prompts. So I displayed on the screen 2 different prompts. First, it was asking them to describe anything that they had seen online that could be classified as bullying or hate.
Okay.
And we defined online as being YouTube, gaming, anything internet, social media. We covered it all. So I asked them to describe anything they had seen online that could be classified as bullying. And then I asked them the question, what could they do to protect themselves from it? And so we had the 2 prompts, and I gave each student 2 sticky notes, 2 Post-its. And I had a huge, the big bulletin board paper.
Yeah.
I had 2 huge pieces of bulletin board paper hanging up on the wall with each one with a different prompt. And I had them sit and think about it and write down on each sticky note their responses to those prompts. And then I told them not to put their name on it. It says completely anonymous, and then go stick it on the chart and then come sit back down.
Okay.
So that's how we started off the lesson. And they took a really long time.
Yeah.
Like you could see the wheels spinning, and some of them crammed so much onto a little sticky note. It reminded me of like when I was in high school and I was trying to do my little cheat sheet.
I bet. I mean, I can imagine, like you were saying, like talking it out, they had a lot to say. So I can just picture them trying to write all of that on a little sticky note.
Oh yeah, they were just steady writing. And then so after they had all put their sticky notes up there, I went straight into reading Nerdy Birdie Tweets by Aaron Reynolds.
Okay.
Yeah, and for those of people listening that are not familiar,
which includes me.
So it's Nerdy Birdie and Vulture. They're 2 friends. They're 2 birds and they're friends. And Nerdy Birdie gets really caught up in social media, and he gets consumed by it, and he kind of ignores his friend and the outside world. And I don't want to spoiler alert the book, but it's a look at what social media, how wrapped up we can get in with social media. And so I read that to them. And I had a pause and said, just think about what lessons can be learned for this for like 30 seconds. Just sit and listen to it. Then I said, okay, now let's look at your responses. And so I went over to the bulletin board paper and I grabbed about 15 from each side. And I just sat down and started reading them. And so as I would read one, I would say, who would like to have a comment? Who wants to comment on this?
Okay.
And their responses, for example, when I asked them to describe something that they had seen online that it was inappropriate, they commented that they had seen people being fat shamed. They used that terminology too. I was like, wow, they're using that terminology. They said it's nonstop foul language. Some of them said they had been sent nude pictures by adults.
What?
Yes,
Oh my
and these are 10
goodness.
and 11-year-olds.
Oh.
They said that there's a lot of online name calling and picking and racist comments. And so when I asked them, I was curious. I said, is this just from other kids or what? And they were like, no, it's a lot of adults too. And so, as they're gaming, there are adults that are joining these platforms and are saying these inappropriate things. So then I asked them, well, before I say that, what I'm going to say next, I asked them, what was the most horrific thing? The amount I noticed on the sticky note, it said KYS on a lot of them. And I didn't know what that meant. So I asked them, every kid immediately, as a group, shouted, kill yourself. That's what that means.
Oh.
Yes. So these 10 and 11-year-olds, and I was like, is this just like a one-time thing? Or they were like, no, like every day, all the time.
Oh
It was
my
shocking
God.
to me.
Yeah.
And I asked them, I said, do your parents know that this is happening? And they all said no. Every one
Well,
of them.
of course, because if they tell their parents, then they're going to get their phones taken away.
Exactly. And I asked them, I said, well, do you have parental controls? And some kids did. Some were like, I'm not allowed social media, but my mom doesn't know that people do this on Minecraft or whatever, game they're playing.
Oh.
Yeah. And they're like, well, we have parental controls, but I know how to get around them to watch TikToks. And so they're smarter than us, and they're like, some of them said they had social media that their parents didn't know about, like Discord. And it was so eye-opening, and it really broke my heart, really,
Yeah.
the things that
And
they were saying.
I mean, there's so many different kinds of channels out there for them to connect with the world, and unfortunately for the world to connect back with them, I mean, I get it, especially if you're their age and you're looking for information and everybody else has a phone, you're not going to want to give that up. But oh boy, this
And the
is
thing that
really,
gets me is, well, and I looked at the terms. I went after this lesson. I looked at the terms of service for all of the platforms they're using, and almost every one of them is 13 and up. And again, my students are 10 and 11.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, how do they check that? You check a box that says, yes, I'm 13 or older.
Exactly. And it's just the irony to me that people are worried about phantom books in the library that they think are going to harm their children when every single one of their children has this in the palm of their hand. And that's what we need to be worrying about. That's really what is alarming to me.
Instead of worrying about them passively picking something up off a shelf, there is active activity to try and get to them and say terrible things to them and show them terrible things. I mean, anyway.
Well, and we had in a town about 20 minutes from our town a few years ago, a 13-year-old was kidnapped. Yes, she was kidnapped because of someone that was posing as a child on social media. And she gave away her location, and fortunately she was found, and, obviously that child probably had things happen and has irreparable harm. But I told the kids that I'm like, this happened right down the road. This can happen to you. And some of them were like, oh, well, we can tell who's a kid and who.
Yeah.
And other kids chimed in and were like, no, you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that the kids think, especially the middle school kids, think that they are so much smarter than everybody, but no, allow me to assure you, you're not as smart as you think you are.
Yeah. And I told them that, and they didn't want to, they were like, well, some of them were like, no, we're too smart. And some of them were like, Miss Jones knows what she's talking about.
She does. Listen to her, kids. Come on. Jeez. So this is a very powerful moment you're having with these students, and you're seeing this KYS, kill yourself, coming up over and over again. Oh my goodness. Oh, so having had them sort of share with you that that's what this was, I mean, aside from the heaviness of that moment, where do you go from there with a lesson like this?
So after we had that discussion, then we turned it to how can you protect yourself?
Okay.
Like, how can you, as a 10 and 11-year-old, protect yourself? So their comments for that prompt were things like, tell an adult. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, oh, is that what y'all do? No,
Uh-huh.
none of them.
Yeah.
And then we had a little discussion about that. Why do you not tell an adult? And do you think you need to? And they shared things like, we can take a break from social media when it gets
Okay.
too heavy. And I shared with them, I didn't share too much with them, but I said, I've had ugly things said to me online. And so it really helps if I get off of social media and
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at that anymore. They said you can block and mute people.
Okay.
And then ask them, is that what you do? No.
What? Why not?
I know some of them did. Some of them said yes, they did block and mute. And then we discussed and they said never give your picture out, never post personal information. We talked about personal information. We even talked about how some of them post pictures of themselves in school shirts and how it has our
Mm.
school name on it, and so people can identify them. And that if they post pictures of themselves, like say in a uniform, people
Mm-hmm.
can figure out that they play that sport and what time the games are. It
Right.
was an in-depth discussion,
What's so
Um,
interesting is they know, like, clearly they know the techniques that they should be employing, and yet actually employing them seems to be sort of where the disconnect comes in.
yes. And I think that's, again, it's their age. They think
Mm-hmm.
they know it all and they think they can handle things, but what they don't realize is that they can't. They can't
Mm-hmm.
handle and they don't know everything.
Yeah,
It was a wild conversation.
I bet.
But we talked about all the different ways to protect yourselves. And I had a little, I don't know what we call a handout. It was like a little um, piece of paper that looked like a tablet.
Okay.
And it had the prompt on there that said, like, what did we learn from this lesson or something like that. And I got it from the Trapped Librarian. I found it on her website.
Hmm.
And I printed it out. And they all wrote, like, what lessons they learned from this. And we cut them out and we posted them all over the outside of the library
Nice.
as a reminder. And I felt so strongly about this lesson that I wrote I emailed School Library Journal. I was like, hey, can I write an article about this lesson? Because I think it's so powerful. And the good thing is they said yes. It's the first time I've ever written for School Library Journal.
Congratulations.
I don't know, thank you. I was excited they said yes. And but then when it was published, I sent copies of it to all of our superintendents
Oh,
at the district office, and they're in charge of 46 schools. And our director of counseling was forwarded, and she will be coming to my school soon. And we're going to talk about how we can take this lesson parish because we're Louisiana, we don't have counties, but take it parish wide to all of the middle schools and junior highs, possibly even how we can shape it for an elementary lesson and possibly high school.
that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to. Not only I knew it was going to be a powerful lesson for my students because I have 700 of them.
Hmm.
But after the lesson was over, I thought, how can we replicate this and do this and reach as many kids as possible? So we'll hopefully be doing that district wide, and so we shall see.
That's awesome. Wow, that's outstanding. Man.
And I will say, after the lesson, so we have a library website, and after the lesson, I posted on our student resource page and our parent resource page. I posted different resources that parents, like how-tos for parents and
Okay.
how-tos for kids. There's some great lessons that can be found on Be Internet Awesome. And there's a family engagement toolkit that Common Sense Media puts out. And so I
Okay.
share that on social media for our parents in our community
That's
to
great.
look at. And I posted it on our resource page, on our library resource page. And I'm hoping at one of our family nights, I can share some more of these resources with our parents when they come to our family nights.
That's so great. And I love that you're not only like one of the reasons I wanted to get into the library was because I was reaching my students in my classroom and it was like this little slice of the population of the school. And if something awesome was going on, it was just these kids who were going to get it. And I was like, one of the good things about the library, you get to give it to every kid. It's not just one kid. And you're taking that and saying, you know what? It's great that we gave it to all the kids here, but we need to give it to more kids all all over because this is important. That's outstanding.
Yeah, my dream is to present this at maybe like a national conference like ASL,
Yeah,
so that other people can replicate it. And it's
absolutely.
not like it's the most creative lesson. I mean, I'm sure there are other people out there that are doing the exact same thing, but I just want to get the word out about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something, I don't know. I hate to dwell on the negative side of middle school, but man, the social media landscape just scares me so much for them. So I'm really glad that you're having these conversations with them, and I absolutely am going to be stealing this and having it with my students too.
Yay! And it's middle school and some of them listen and some of them don't.
Yep. Yep.
But the cool thing was in this lesson, I really felt like every single kid was paying attention.
Yeah.
Now, so whether or not they go back and they, follow the advice of their fellow students or my advice about staying safe, I don't know. But I hope if even one kid
Yeah.
follows the advice, that
That's a
lesson
big
worked for
difference.
me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I can absolutely see ways to sort of scale this for the lower grades and for the upper grades too. So I'm really glad that you're going to be talking about how you can do that for your students as well. Because I mean, I think other than middle school, high school is probably the other group that I would really be curious what they had to say about what they saw and what they did.
Oh yeah, and I have my own child is in high school, and I had talked to her a little bit about it, and she told me the same stuff, and I kind of already knew because I do monitor
Mm-hmm.
my child's social media. She's not on a lot of social media, but I do allow her. She's 17, so I allow her to have TikTok and Discord. But I check it every now and then, and I've seen things on hers, and
Yeah.
the good thing is that when you have these discussions with your own child, they come and share. And she has come forth and shared several things with me that people have done to her, and we've discussed parent to child what to do about that, and I've even contacted some of their parents that I was friends with, and we had a frank discussion with them.
Hmm.
So I really encourage not only teachers to do a lesson like this, but parents to have these conversations with their own kids.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that is an awesome lesson, if a little heavy. I want to go in a slightly different direction, and we're going to take our book break.
Book break. Squiddy.
So, book break time. We can talk about any book you want. It can be professional, personal, for kids, for yourself, for adults, for teens, whatever you got. So, what book do you want to share with us?
Okay, can I share two?
You sure can.
Okay, so one book I want to share is The Archivist by Nicholas Smith.
Okay.
And he came to ASL and he was one of the keynote speakers.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And he is so amazing. So he has his book, The Archivist, but he's also illustrated so many other books. He illustrated the book I Am Ruby Bridges and, Born on the Water, the 1619 project.
Mm-hmm.
But The Archivist is just it's just so amazing. And I was at ASL, I was with school librarian Erica Long from Tennessee, and she actually got the paintbrush that he has, and that she got it tattooed as an honor while we were there. And it's because it's such an inspiring book and message. And then so the second book I want to mention is kind of heavy.
Okay, that's all right. We're adults. We can handle it.
So I've really been down this rabbit hole of why people believe in conspiracy theories and things like that, because I've had a lot of things thrown my way.
Mm-hmm.
So I recently read a book called Jesus and John Wayne.
Okay.
So it's called Jesus and John Wayne, How White Evangelicals Corrupted a Faith and Fractured a Nation. Because I am white and I'm a Christian, and I wanted to understand how people that are in my family and friends, why they think the way they do. So I read that, and I might have secretly purchased it on Amazon for my father and had it delivered to his home.
Anonymously. I don't know how it got there, but oh well, since it's here.
Yeah, but it's just a book to make you think, but that's strictly an adult book, and The Archivist is a kid book.
The Archivist, I keep forgetting that I want to pick it up, and I remember seeing Nicholas Smith speaking at ASL, and it was just his talk was so incredible, and he is such an amazing artist and thinker, and
he's so inspiring. He even posted today, he posted on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it now. He even posted some artwork today that blew my mind. I'm like, he's so talented.
Yeah. He is just a really amazing guy. That's definitely going on my TBR / to be bought. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, for giving us lessons and books and things to think about. There's a lot going on here, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming here. If people want to find you, how are they going to do it?
Okay, so I do have a website. It's called librarianjones.com. And so it pretty much says everything about me on there. And then if anybody wants to look at my censorship journey, or I have a book coming out called That Librarian. That's coming out in August. And so I have a link on my website, librarianjones.com, where people can see about my book that I'm writing, about my personal fight of being defamed in my small town community. For standing up for censorship. And then I'm also on Blue Sky.
Yay!
I know I'm trying to get better at it. I'm just not as good as I'm trying, and I don't even know my handle on Blue Sky.
That's all right.
That's not great. But I on Twitter /X, I can be found at ABMACK33.
All right. I cannot wait to get my hands on your book. I ordered one from what I think is your local bookshop, and I wrote in the notes, please ask her if she can sign this for me. And so they wrote back, they were like, oh, we'll make sure she sees that it's from you. So keep your eyes open.
Will do. And they are so, my local bookstore, Cavalier House Books in Denham Springs, is so great. And so, yes, anybody who pre-orders from my bookstore, every copy will be signed.
Love it. Oh man, I am so glad for you. And I've got to say, like, you have been going through so much, and I know that people are going to know that as they come into this, but even as you are talking about it and writing about it, you're still laughing and you're still smiling and you're still staying positive. And I so much admire and appreciate that about you. So thank you so much for that aspect of, on top of all the other stuff. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Steve, because for the listeners who don't know, Steve, you've been one of my biggest supporters and friends over the past few years. And so I appreciate you so much. So thank you.
Anytime. All right. Thanks for checking out this episode of the SLLN podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes, which include not only a link to the lesson, but also links to the SLLN website, home to a curated list of free upcoming virtual events and resources for school librarians. It's easy to become a member of the network. Just visit the site and use what you like. If you have an idea, a question, or a lesson you want to share, you can email schoolliblearning@gmail.com. That's school, LIB, learning@gmail.com. Know someone with a great school library lesson? Let us know. Until next time, be safe, be good, and be well.